Captain Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the UES Intrepid, watching the stars blur past as her ship patrolled the outer edges of human space. 20 years of peace had made these patrols routine, almost boring. But something felt different today. A tension in the air that made her shoulder blades itch. "Captain, we're picking up some unusual readings from the Centauri colony," Lieutenant Marcus Rivera called from his sensor station. His dark eyes narrowed as he studied the readouts. "Energy signatures I've never seen before." Sarah turned from the viewport, her military boots clicking against the polished deck. "Show me." The main display lit up with a cascade of data. The patterns were unlike anything in their database. Peaks and valleys of energy that seemed to defy known physics. As she studied the readings, red warning lights suddenly flooded the bridge. Multiple ships dropping out of FTL. Marcus shouted, "Configuration unknown. Nothing in our records matches these designs." The viewport filled with shapes that hurt Sarah's eyes to look at. The vessels were massive, their hulls covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and change even as she watched. They moved with an odd, jerking grace that suggested their method of propulsion was completely alien. 7 ships, Marcus reported, his voice steady despite the tension. Each one approximately 3 times the size of the Intrepid. They're charging weapons. "Sound general quarters," Sarah ordered, sliding into her command chair. "Shields up. Bring all weapons online. Send an emergency signal to Fleet Command. Unknown hostile forces encountered at Centauri Colony." The Intrepid's klaxons blared as the crew rushed to battle stations. Sarah watched the alien ships advance, their formation suggesting both intelligence and military precision. "Open a channel," she commanded. "All frequencies." "Channel open." Communications Officer Maya Patel confirmed. Sarah straightened in her chair. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Intrepid. You have entered human space without authorization and are showing hostile intent. Identify yourselves immediately." The response came not in words but in action. A beam of sickly green energy lanced out from the lead alien vessel, striking the Centauri colony's main habitat dome. The beam seemed to pass through the colony's shields as if they didn't exist. In horror, Sarah watched as the dome began to dissolve, its molecular structure simply coming apart. "Get us between those ships and the colony," Sarah ordered. "All power to forward shields. Lieutenant Rivera, target the lead vessel. Let's show them humanity isn't defenseless." The Intrepid's engines roared as the ship moved to protect the colony of 50,000 souls. Its railguns opened up, sending hypervelocity rounds screaming through space. The shots struck the lead alien vessel's hull and bounced off without leaving a mark. "No effect," Marcus reported. "Their hull composition, it's like nothing we've ever encountered. The readings suggest it's somehow both solid and fluid at the same time." "Launch missile salvo, full spread," Sarah commanded. "Maya, get me colony control. We need to start evacuating civilians now." The Intrepid's missile tubes emptied, sending dozens of nuclear-tipped warheads toward the alien fleet. The enemy ships responded with casual efficiency, their green beams swatting the missiles from space before they could detonate. "Colony control isn't responding," Maya reported, her face pale. "The dissolution beam. It's affecting their communication systems. We're getting scattered distress calls from individual HAB units, but nothing coordinated." Sarah felt ice form in her stomach as she realized the full scope of what they were facing. These weren't raiders or pirates. This was a force with technology far beyond humanity's current level, and they had attacked without warning or provocation. "Multiple targets locking onto us," Marcus warned. "Energy buildup detected." "Evasive maneuvers," Sarah ordered. "Get us." The bridge lurched as green beams struck the Intrepid. Sarah watched in horror as the ship's best shields, designed to withstand nuclear detonations, simply ceased to exist where the beams touched them. "Hull breach on decks 3 through 7. Engineering reported. Whatever that weapon is, it's breaking down the molecular bonds in our armor." Sarah's mind raced. Conventional weapons were useless. Their shields might as well have been tissue paper. The colony was being systematically destroyed behind them, and Fleet Command's nearest reinforcements were at least 6 hours away. All hands, she broadcast ship-wide. Prepare for emergency maneuvers. Engineering, I need everything you can give me to the engines. We're going to try something incredibly stupid. She turned to her helm officer. Plot a collision course with the lead vessel. If our weapons can't penetrate their hull, maybe several million tons of ship moving at relativistic speeds will get their attention. Captain, Marcus said softly, at that velocity, the impact will destroy both ships. We won't survive. Sarah watched as another habitat dome began to dissolve, thousands of lives ending in silence. Neither will a colony if we do nothing. Sometimes, the only way to protect humanity is to show our enemies that we'll pay any price to stop them. She took a deep breath. Set the course. All hands to emergency stations and evacuation pods. I'll need a skeleton crew tow. New contact. Marcus suddenly shouted. Something just appeared between us and the alien fleet. Sarah's eyes snapped to the viewport. Where empty space had been moments before, a ship now hung in the void. It was clearly of human design, but unlike anything she'd ever seen. Sleek and deadly, its hull covered in what looked like layers of shifting, overlapping plates. It's broadcasting on standard fleet frequencies, Maya reported, sounding confused. They're identifying themselves as the UES Artemis. Captain, their ID codes. They're valid, but they're not in any format I've ever seen. Before Sarah could respond, the mysterious ship moved. Its hull plates rippled like liquid metal, and what she had thought were decorative patterns suddenly revealed themselves as weapon ports. Energy weapons of a dozen different designs opened fire simultaneously, each beam and bolt a different color and configuration. The alien ships reacted instantly, bringing their own weapons to bear. But where their dissolution beams had passed through the Intrepid's shields effortlessly, they seemed to splash harmlessly off the Artemis defenses. The new ship's return fire, however, tore into the alien vessels with devastating effect. Sarah watched in amazement as the Artemis single-handedly engaged the alien fleet, its impossible weapons and defenses making short work of ships that had shrugged off the Intrepid's best efforts. Within minutes, the remaining alien vessels were retreating, jumping to FTL with their dead and damaged left behind. Captain, Maya said, her voice shaking slightly, we're being hailed by the Artemis. Text only. The message reads, Captain Chen, we need to talk. Humanity is in far more danger than you realize, and what you just witnessed is only the beginning. Permission to send a delegation to your ship. Sarah looked at the mysterious vessel, a ship that was somehow both familiar and impossible, that had appeared from nowhere to save them, and that knew her name without being told. Whatever was going on, she had a feeling the universe had just become a much larger and more dangerous place than anyone had imagined. Grant permission, she ordered, and someone get me everything we recorded about that battle. I want to know exactly what we just saw, and who our mysterious saviors really are. The delegation from the Artemis arrived in a shuttle that defied physics. One moment it was launching from the mysterious warship, the next it was somehow already docked with the Intrepid. Sarah watched through the observation window as the airlock cycled, her hand resting instinctively on her sidearm. 3 figures stepped through. Their uniforms looked almost like standard fleet issue, but with subtle differences that made them seem both advanced and antiquated at the same time. The leader was a tall woman with close-cropped silver hair and dark skin. Her companions were a younger man with East Asian features and an older gentleman whose entire right arm appeared to be some kind of advanced prosthetic. Captain Chen, the woman said, extending her hand. I'm Commander Diana Wells. This is Dr. James Park and Chief Engineer Victor Rossi. Thank you for receiving us. Sarah shook the offered hand, noting the calluses that spoke of years of military service. I think we're the ones who should be thanking you. Without your intervention, we'd have lost the colony. and probably the Intrepid as well. The Vex are not known for showing mercy, Diana said grimly. They consider all other forms of life to be contamination. The Vex? Sarah asked. Is that what we're calling our visitors? That's what they call themselves, though the translation loses some nuance. Dr. Park spoke up, his voice carrying an odd accent Sarah couldn't place. They believe the universe should be pure, geometric, perfect. Organic life offends them on a fundamental level. Sarah led them to the Intrepid's conference room, where Marcus and Maya were already waiting. As they sat down, Engineer Rossi placed a small device on the table. It hummed softly and projected a holographic display showing the recent battle. First, Diana said, I need to be clear about something. We're not from your future, as you might be assuming. The truth is both simpler and more complicated than that. You're from an alternate reality, Marcus said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. The energy readings from your ship, they show quantum signatures that match theoretical models for parallel universe interactions. Plus, your weapons, each one seems to operate on different principles, as if they were developed by completely different technological paths. Diana smiled. Your sensor officer is quite observant, Captain. Yes, we're from another Earth, one that developed very differently from yours. In our reality, humanity never expanded to the stars. We couldn't. The Vex found us much earlier in our development. The hologram shifted, showing images that made Sarah's blood run cold. Earth cities being dissolved by the same weapons they'd witnessed today. Millions of refugees huddled in underground bunkers. But also, humanity fighting back with increasingly exotic technologies. Our Earth became a fortress, Victor explained, his prosthetic arm gesturing at the display. Every nation, every culture developed their own ways to resist the Vex. The Chinese perfected quantum shielding. India cracked the secrets of gravity manipulation. African scientists revolutionized energy weapons. The Artemis represents the combined defensive knowledge of an entire planet that had to evolve or die. But why are you here? Maya asked. Why help us? Because the Vex aren't just fighting a war of conquest, Diana said heavily. They're fighting a war of extinction, across multiple realities. We discovered their true plan by accident. They're systematically wiping out humanity in every universe they can access. Sarah leaned forward. How many realities are we talking about? Thousands, maybe millions. Dr. Park's fingers danced over a small tablet, changing the hologram to show a complex mathematical model. Some they attack directly, like they did here. In others, they manipulate events to prevent humans from ever developing space travel. In some universes, they introduce diseases or trigger environmental catastrophes. The methods vary, but the goal is always the same: humanity's complete elimination from every possible timeline. Why? Sarah asked. What makes us so special that they'd go to such lengths? Diana exchanged glances with her companions before answering. Because they're afraid of us. Their precognitive technology lets them see possible futures, and in too many of those futures, humanity surpasses them. They've seen versions of Earth that master technologies they can't comprehend. They've witnessed human empires that span galaxies, and most terrifying to them, they've seen futures where we learn to do what they do, travel between realities, but better. So they're trying to nip us in the bud, Sarah said, understanding dawning. Eliminate the threat before it can materialize. Exactly. Diana's expression was grim. But they didn't count on one thing. Humans from different realities learning to work together. The Artemis isn't just a ship, it's a prototype. We've been traveling from universe to universe, finding Earths under attack and helping them defend themselves. More importantly, we've been sharing technology, teaching other versions of humanity how to resist. Victor tapped his prosthetic arm. Each Earth we encountered has developed unique solutions to fighting the Vex. By combining these different approaches, we've created defensive and offensive capabilities they can't counter because they've never seen anything like them before. That's why your weapons worked when ours were useless, Marcus realized. You're not using one advanced technology. You're using dozens of different technologies simultaneously. They can't adapt because each attack comes from a different technological base. And now we're here to offer the same opportunity to your Earth, Diana said. We can help you upgrade your defenses, show you how to combine technologies in ways the Vex can't predict. But we need to work fast. That attack wasn't a random incident. It was the beginning of their campaign against your reality. Sarah stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the Artemis. The ship's hull seemed to shimmer slightly, as if it wasn't quite fully in their universe. How long do we have? Days, maybe weeks at most, Dr. Park answered. They'll be back with a larger force, and this time, they'll target more than just one colony. Sarah turned back to the group. Then we better get started. I'll need to contact Fleet Command, make them understand the situation. She paused, studying Diana's face. There's something else, isn't there? Something you haven't told us yet. Diana nodded slowly. The Vex aren't the end of it. They're just the advance guard. There's something else out there, something that scares even them. And it's the real reason we need humanity to survive in as many realities as possible. The conference room fell silent as the implications of that statement sank in. Sarah looked at her officers, seeing her own determination reflected in their faces. Whatever was coming, humanity would face it together, not just as one species, but as a species spanning multiple realities. Well then, Sarah said, straightening her uniform. Let's get to work. We have a lot to do, and not much time to do it in. Chief Engineer Amanda Torres stood in the Intrepid's engine room, watching in fascination as Victor Rossi's prosthetic arm seemingly dissolved into a swarm of microscopic robots. The tiny machines flowed into the ship's power distribution system, reconfiguring circuits and adding new components that seemed to defy conventional physics. Quantum-entangled power relays, Victor explained, noticing her expression. They'll allow your weapons to draw energy directly from subspace, bypassing traditional power limitations. The Vex won't expect a ship of this era to have that capability. And these modifications won't damage our existing systems. Amanda asked, checking readings on her tablet. The power curves she was seeing should have been impossible. Victor smiled. The nanites are designed to integrate with any human technology, regardless of its development path. They're actually adapting their work based on your ship's specific configuration. His artificial arm reformed as the swarm returned. Your Earth's approach to engineering is fascinating. You develop solutions we never even considered. On the bridge, Captain Chen was having a similar conversation with Dr. Park. The scientist was installing what he called a reality anchor, a device that would protect the Intrepid from the Vex's more exotic weapons. The dissolution beams you encountered work by shifting matter slightly out of phase with our reality, Park explained, making adjustments to the device. This counter-shifts your hull plating to match the frequency of the attack, neutralizing its effect. We discovered the principle by accident when warning klaxons suddenly blared throughout the ship. Multiple spatial distortions detected, Marcus called out. But these readings are different from Vex signatures. The view screen showed space itself seeming to twist and fold. Where the distortions appeared, strange shapes became visible, geometric patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than human eyes could process. They're here, Diana said grimly, entering the bridge. The thing that hunts the Vex. The reason they're so desperate to eliminate humanity across all realities. The shapes resolved themselves into something that hurt to look at. Vessels that appeared to be inside out and outside in simultaneously. Sarah felt a pressure in her mind just from trying to perceive them. What are we looking at? She asked, fighting down a wave of vertigo. We call them the architects, Diana replied. They exist outside conventional spacetime. To them, reality itself is like clay to be molded. The Vex discovered them and tried to fight them, but their technology was useless against beings that could simply rewrite the laws of physics in their vicinity. But what do they want? Maya asked, her hands hovering over the communications console, as if unsure whether attempting contact would even be meaningful. To reshape all of existence according to their own incomprehensible design, Dr. Park said. They don't even perceive us as life forms. We're just bits of chaos in their perfect geometric order. The Vex learned it the hard way when they first encountered them. And this is why you're helping different versions of humanity? Sarah asked, beginning to understand. Because we might be able to stop them. Diana nodded. In every reality where humanity survives long enough, they develop in unique and unpredictable ways. The architects can't account for human creativity and adaptability. They can't predict what we might become. That's why the Vex are trying to wipe us out. They think that if they eliminate humanity, the architects will spare them. The alien vessels began moving in patterns that made Sarah's head ache. They're preparing to attack, Victor announced, checking readings on a device that seemed to be partially phased out of normal space. But they're also doing something else, something to the fabric of space itself. Suddenly, the void between the ships lit up with impossible colors. Sarah watched in horror as multiple realities began bleeding into their own. She could see other versions of the Intrepid, other Earths, other histories all overlapping. They're collapsing the barriers between realities. Diana shouted over the growing chaos. If they succeed, they'll be able to reshape all possible timelines at once. Can we stop them? Sarah demanded, gripping her command chair as reality itself seemed to shudder around them. Not alone, Diana replied. But we're not alone anymore. She activated a communication device, unlike anything Sarah had seen before. This is Commander Wells to all Allied vessels across the multiverse. Execute Operation Crossroads. Now. Space erupted with light as ships began appearing. Dozens, then hundreds of vessels, each one a different version of human ingenuity and determination. Sarah saw ships that looked like they were made of pure energy, vessels that seemed to be grown rather than built, craft that manipulated gravity itself for propulsion. My God, Marcus whispered. They're all us, different versions of humanity, united across realities. Diana confirmed, each bringing their own unique technologies and approaches. This is what the architects couldn't predict and what the Vex feared. Humanity's ability to work together across dimensional boundaries, combining our knowledge in ways that transcend conventional physics. The architects' vessels shifted, responding to the threat. Reality continued to fragment around them as the greatest battle in human histories, began. All ships, Sarah broadcast, her voice steady despite the impossible situation. This is Captain Chen. Today we fight not just for our Earth, but for every Earth, for every version of humanity that was, is, or could be. Today we show these entities that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to stand together against any threat, in any reality. As the combined human fleet engaged the architects, Sarah couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. This was humanity at its finest, adapting, cooperating, refusing to submit to forces that should have been beyond their comprehension. The universe was about to learn why even beings that could rewrite reality had reason to fear what humanity might become. Reality shuddered as the architects' vessels moved to engage the gathered human fleet. Space itself seemed to crack and splinter around them, showing glimpses of other dimensions through the fractures. The Intrepid's sensors were overwhelmed, trying to track battles that were happening simultaneously across multiple timelines. Energy signatures off the scale, Marcus reported, his console displaying readings that shouldn't have been possible. The architects are trying to rewrite local physics. Our reality anchor is the only thing keeping us phase-locked in normal space. Sarah watched as the first wave of human ships engaged the enemy. Vessels that looked like they were made of crystallized light-fired weapons that bent time itself. Living ships grown from engineered biological material released swarms of quantum-entangled fighters, ships that resembled ancient Greek triremes, but built from dark matter, phased through the architects' attacks while launching counterstrikes that existed in 7 dimensions at once. "This is incredible," Maya breathed, watching the battle unfold. Each Earth developed completely different approaches to space combat. "That's humanity's greatest strength," Diana said, coordinating with other vessels through her reality-spanning communications device. "We never all go down the same path. The architects can predict any single line of technological development, but they can't account for thousands of different approaches being used simultaneously." The Intrepid shuddered as reality distortions washed over it. Through the view screen, Sarah saw versions of her ship from other timelines, some more advanced, some following completely different design philosophies. In one, the Intrepid was a sentient AI construct. In another, it was powered by controlled miniature stars. "All vessels, coordinate your attacks," Sarah broadcast. "Don't let them isolate us in separate reality pockets. Work together across dimensional boundaries." The human fleet responded with a level of cooperation that would have seemed impossible hours ago. Ships from different timelines combined their technologies in ways that created entirely new forms of warfare. A vessel using primitive nuclear drives linked its power systems, with one using zero-point energy, creating a feedback loop that amplified both. A fleet of solar sail ships from one reality merged with quantum phase ships from another, their combined presence allowing them to exist in multiple states simultaneously. "The architects are adapting," Victor warned, his prosthetic arm interfacing directly with the Intrepid's enhanced systems. "They're trying to stabilize reality according to their own laws of physics. If they succeed, most of our technologies will cease to function." "Then we don't let them succeed," Sarah replied firmly. "Dr. Park, you said your reality anchor counters attempts to shift us out of phase. Can we use that offensively?" Park's eyes lit up with understanding. "If we modify the anchor to project its effect, yes. We could create a bubble of stable space that the architects can't modify. But we'd need enormous power, more than any single ship could generate." "Then we don't use a single ship," Sarah said. She opened a channel to the fleet. "All vessels, this is Captain Chen. We need every ship with reality anchor technology to coordinate with the Intrepid. Everyone else, keep the architects occupied. We're going to give them a taste of their own medicine." Diana quickly grasped the plan. "If we can create a large enough zone of stable space, we can trap them in a reality they can't control. But the power requirements will be met," Sarah finished, "because we're going to link every form of power generation humanity has ever developed, across every timeline represented here." The next few minutes were chaos as ships maneuvered into position. The architects seemed to sense what they were attempting, their vessels shifting into impossible configurations as they tried to stop the human fleet from coordinating. "Power links established," Victor reported, his artificial arm glowing with energy. "We're connecting with fusion reactors, quantum vacuum extractors, dark energy taps, parallel universe inductors. The readings are beyond anything we can measure." "Reality anchors synchronizing," Park added. "Field propagation beginning. Now." A wave of pure stability erupted from the gathered human ships, spreading outward like a bubble of crystal-clear space in the midst of the reality storm. Where it touched the architects' vessels, their impossible geometries were forced into normal space, confined to physics they couldn't simply rewrite. "It's working," Marcus shouted. "They're being forced into our reality framework. Their dimensional manipulation abilities are being suppressed. All ships, open fire," Sarah commanded. "Hit them with everything we have, from every timeline we've got." The combined human fleet unleashed a barrage that represented every weapon humanity had ever conceived, across thousands of different possible histories. Particle beams met antimatter torpedoes, met chronometric charges, met weapons that hadn't even been named yet. The architects' vessels, stripped of their ability to simply ignore the laws of physics, found themselves facing the combined military might of humanity across all realities. The result was beyond spectacular. Ships that had seemed invincible began breaking apart under the assault, their once impossible forms reduced to wreckage that blazed with energies from a dozen different technological bases. The remaining architects' vessels tried to retreat, but found themselves trapped in the bubble of stable space. They're attempting some kind of last-ditch effort, Diana warned, reading data from her trans-dimensional sensors. Energy buildup suggesting they're trying to collapse all local timelines into a singularity. Not today, Sarah said grimly. All ships, emergency protocol Omega. Channel all remaining power through your reality anchors. Let's show them what happens when they push humanity too far. The bubble of stable space began to contract, forcing the architects' vessels closer together. Their attempt to collapse reality was turned back on them, compressed into an ever-shrinking sphere of space where their own physics-defying nature became their undoing. 10 seconds to total containment, Park counted down. What we're creating here, it's a pocket universe with our laws of physics. They'll be trapped there, unable to affect our reality again. Sarah watched as the last of the architect's vessels were forced into the containment sphere. In a final flash of impossible light, the sphere collapsed to a point and vanished, taking with it the greatest threat humanity had ever faced. The bridge was silent for a long moment, everyone trying to process what they had just witnessed. Finally, Maya spoke up. Did we just beat beings that could rewrite reality? No, Diana said, a proud smile on her face. Humanity beat them. Not just our humanity, but every version of humanity that refused to give up, that found new ways to fight, that chose to stand together when the universe itself seemed to be against us. Sarah looked out at the gathered fleet, thousands of ships representing thousands of different paths humanity might take. And now, what happens to all these different timelines? They remain separate, Park explained. But now we know we can work together. The dimensional barriers will stabilize, but we've proven that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to unite across any boundary, even the boundaries between realities themselves. The victory they'd achieved today would echo across countless timelines, a testament to what humanity could accomplish when they stood together. But as Sarah looked at her crew, at their new allies from across the multiverse, she knew this wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. They had shown the universe that humanity wasn't just a species to be feared or eliminated. They were a force that could unite across all possible realities to protect existence itself. 1 month after the battle that saved reality itself, the Intrepid hung in orbit around Earth, its hull still bearing the scars of combat across multiple dimensions. The ship's observation lounge had been converted into an impromptu conference room, hosting what might have been the most unusual gathering in human history. Representatives from a dozen different timelines sat around the table, each bringing reports of how their respective realities were stabilizing after the architect's defeat. Sarah watched as holographic displays showed the status of dimensional barriers slowly returning to normal, the cracks in space-time healing themselves. The Vex have gone silent in all monitored realities, Diana reported, her silver hair gleaming under the stars. Without the architects to fear, they seem to have lost their drive for universal genocide. Some of their worlds are even cautiously responding to diplomatic overtures. Amazing what removing an existential threat will do for interspecies relations, Victor commented, his prosthetic arm now incorporating technology from 3 different timelines. The enhanced capabilities had proved invaluable in the ongoing recovery efforts. Dr. Park manipulated a complex holographic display showing the intersection points between realities. The dimensional barriers are stabilizing, but they're not returning to their previous state. The connections we forged during the battle, they're permanent, not large enough for ships to pass through, but sufficient for communication and data exchange. So we can stay in contact, Sarah said, feeling a wave of relief. The idea of losing connection with all these other versions of humanity had been troubling her. We can continue to share knowledge and warnings across realities. More than that, Maya added, looking up from her newly upgraded communications console. We're already seeing the benefits of cross-reality cooperation. Medical breakthroughs from Timeline C394 are helping cure diseases in Timeline A127. Clean energy solutions from timeline F891 are being adapted to fight climate change in multiple Earths. Amanda Torres, who had spent the past month working with engineering teams from different realities, pulled up schematics showing the improvements they'd made to the Intrepid. The ship's essentially a prototype now for cross-reality technological integration. We've got power systems from 5 different timelines working in harmony. Defensive capabilities that combine theories of physics that shouldn't even be compatible. And that's just the beginning, Marcus added. Every Earth is following its own path of development, but now we can share our discoveries, warn each other of threats, help each other overcome challenges. It's like humanity suddenly gained access to thousands of parallel research and development programs simultaneously. Sarah stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at her Earth, one of countless Earths, each with its own history, its own challenges, its own triumphs. We should remember this, she said quietly. Not just the victory, but how we achieved it. When we faced beings that could rewrite reality itself, we didn't win through superior firepower or advanced technology alone. We won because every version of humanity brought something unique to the fight. The architects couldn't predict us because they couldn't understand us. Diana agreed, joining her at the viewport. They saw reality as something to be ordered, controlled, made geometric and predictable. But humanity, we thrive on chaos, on creativity, on finding new ways to solve problems. They thought eliminating us would make the universe simpler, Victor said. Instead, they united every version of us across all possible timelines. Probably not the outcome they were hoping for. An alert chimed softly. Park checked his readings and smiled. The first data packets from timeline K729 are coming through. They found a way to neutralize cosmic radiation that none of us had considered. Their development path focused heavily on biological engineering. They essentially created artificial magnetospheres using engineered bacteria. See, Sarah gestured at the data streaming in. That's exactly what I mean. No single Earth would have thought of all these solutions. But together, she turned to address the gathered representatives. We need to ensure this cooperation continues, not just for defense, but for exploration, for scientific advancement, for solving the challenges that every version of humanity faces. We're already working on it, Diana replied. The Artemis was just the prototype. We're establishing a permanent cross-reality monitoring and cooperation network, early warning systems for threats, research sharing protocols, emergency response procedures. The dimensional bridges we created will become humanity's greatest tool for advancement. And the architects? Maya asked. Could they ever escape the pocket universe we trapped them in? Unlikely, Park answered. The physics in there are locked to our rules, not theirs. They're effectively contained in a reality they can't rewrite. But even if they did somehow escape, he smiled. Well, they'd face a humanity that's now united across all possible timelines. I don't like their chances. Sarah looked around the room at the gathered humans. Different versions of her species, each having taken different paths, but all sharing that fundamental spark that made them who they were. The architects had feared humanity's potential, and in trying to eliminate it, they had caused that potential to be realized far sooner than it might have otherwise. I propose a toast, she said, raising a glass. To humanity. Every version of us, across every timeline. We proved that our greatest strength isn't our technology, our weapons, or even our intelligence. It's our ability to unite, to adapt, to face the impossible, and find a way forward. The architects thought they were gods who could rewrite reality, but they never understood the one force they couldn't control: human determination. As the gathered representatives raised their glasses, Sarah couldn't help but smile. The future, all possible futures, looked brighter than ever. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged not just victorious, but transformed. They had proven that across every timeline, every possible history, every potential future, one thing remained constant: humanity's indomitable spirit. The stars seemed to shine brighter through the viewport, as if reflecting the limitless possibilities that now lay before them. The barriers between realities might have been breached, but the bonds between different versions of humanity had proved stronger than the very fabric of space-time itself. Whatever challenges the future held, they would face them together, not just as one species, but as a species united across all possible realities.